Okay, so as you saw in the previous lesson, regardless of how we rotate an object, when we are changing its location, we are simply moving along the global x-axis, the global z-axis, and of course the global y-axis. Now here we're talking about the actual origin point of an object. So what we're going to do now is take a look at how does this concept work when we are dealing with parent-child relationships. So go ahead and do Shift C to place the 3D cursor in the center, and do Shift A and add a cube. Now we want to see internally what's going on with this cube, so just go to the Object tab. Over here we're going to switch this to Wire, enable Axis and Names. Now go ahead and just zoom out a bit. Now press the G key to move this object over here, and press the R key to rotate a bit, and go ahead and open this up. Now again, this is showing you how far the object is from the center of the 3D grid. We're talking about the origin point. So if we click over here on the X value and change it with our mouse, you can see that we can only move along the global x-axis. Same thing with Z, global z-axis. And of course, if we do the middle mouse button, when we click on Y, we're moving along the global y-axis. Now, for these lessons, we're not interested in the y-axis, so here I'm just going to click and type in 0. We're just going to press the 1 key to go to the front view. Right, so the y-axis is really just facing towards us. Now, in order to move this object along the local axis, the axis that is being displayed on it, basically on the origin point, we have to use the 3D manipulator. There's no other way to move this object without the 3D manipulator on its local axis. So here we're just going to switch to local. Now when we click on this red arrow and move this object, of course the X and Z values are going to change. This is because the object is moving a bit on the global x-axis and a bit on the global z-axis, right? Because it's moving diagonally. Now if you want to get a better understanding of this, you can just simply press the tab key, do X, and just delete all the vertices, and now do tab. Now you can also get rid of the axis, and you'll see that it's just a dot in origin point. Now when you press the G key, you can see that this is how we're actually moving the object. Right click to cancel. Now just do Ctrl Z a few times until the cube comes back. Make sure that the axis is still checked. Now press the G key to move this down a bit over here, and Shift middle mouse button, I'm just going to pan it down. Now we're going to do Shift D to duplicate this object and place it over here. Now do Alt R to reset its rotation. Now we want to create a parent-child relationship, and as I've already shown you, that when we create that relationship, really a snapshot of the center of the 3D grid where it was when that relationship was created is going to be tracked by the parent. So what we're going to do is create a visual marker that we can see where it goes when the parent rotates or moves. So to do this, just do Shift A and add an empty, and here we're just going to add arrows, and just press the S key to scale this. Again, this is just a visual marker. This is the only reason we're putting it here. Now, in order for this visual marker to travel with this object, we of course have to use a parent-child relationship to do this. This is really the best way to do it. So go ahead and click this object, press the Shift key down and click on this one. And now just do Control P and pick Object. Now, this is the visual marker really showing that if you create the true parent-child relationship between this object and this object, this is where this marker is going to be. So to see this, go ahead and create the true parent-child relationship that we want to track. So click on this object, press the Shift key down, click on this one, and now just do Control P and pick Object. Now you'll see that when we click on the parent for this object, when we press the G key, how this imaginary center of the 3D grid moves with it. Now press the R key to rotate. So if you click on the child, do Alt G, you'll see that this is where it was going. Okay? Now do Control Z to undo this. Now what I want you to notice over here is that whatever you do to the parent, what's happening to this imaginary center, really it's a coordinate system that is being attached to the parent. But notice its orientation. Okay? Now you can see how parent-child relationships actually work internally. In order for this object to be placed anywhere over here, meaning its offset, its distance from its parent, when you click on the parent and press the G key to move it, it's really using this local coordinate system to do it, right? Because Blender has to somehow track where this object is according to where the parent is. So this is how it works internally. So what I want you to do is click on the parent and do Alt R to reset the rotation. Now notice the orientation of this visual marker over here that the child object is using. Now press the G key to move it a little closer to it, and press the R key to just rotate and go ahead and zoom in. Now you'll notice that when we click over here on the X value and change it, this is how the child will move. It will move according to the imaginary center of the 3D grid that is traveling with the parent. Okay? So what you're looking at over here is what is known as local space. So this object, the child object, is operating in a local space, and the parent object is operating in world space. Now let's take a look at what happens that if you take this object to Shift D, just create a duplicate, press the R key to rotate, and you give this parent another child. So go ahead and click on this object, press the Shift key down, click on this one, and now do Control P and pick Object. Now we have to do the same thing. We have to do Shift A, and over here, in order to track that imaginary center for this relationship, we're just going to click on arrows, click on this object, press the Shift key down, and of course we have to tell the parent to track this center for this object, because this object is the child of this object. Now do Control P and Object. Now when you click on the parent, press the R key, you can see that the parent has two children, and it's keeping track of both imaginary centers for both of these children. So now when we click on this and do Alt G, of course it's going to go over here, and it's going to behave the same way like this object was, meaning that if we click on its X value, it will only move along the X-axis and along the Z-axis. And of course it's going to do the same thing for the Y-axis, but we're not interested in that right now. So go ahead and click on this object and do Alt R. Now let's take a look at how does this work with nested relationships. So here in this case, I'm just going to press the G key and actually move this guy right around. Let's say over here, so we have some space to work with. Go ahead and do Shift D to duplicate this object, and let's say over here we'll put it and press the R key to rotate. Now the only reason I'm rotating these objects is because I just want you to see that it's really just have to do with the movement along the X and the Z axis of a local coordinate system. Okay, now over here what we're going to do is really make this the parent of this object. So do the same thing, click on this object, press the Shift key down, click on this one, Now do Control P. So this is now a nested parent-child relationship. This object is the child of this object, and this object is the parent of this object. In the same time, this object is the child of this object. Okay, so let's do the same thing. Do Shift A, and over here we're going to do arrows. Again, now we have to select on this object, press the Shift key down, and make it be tracked by the parent of this object. So just do Control P and select object. Now when you click on this object, press the G key and press the R key to rotate. You'll notice that how these concepts are working. So this means that if we click on this object, press the G key to move it over here, you'll notice that when we click on the X value, it's going to move according to its local space, right? If you do Alt G, it'll just appear over here. So you can see that with all these relationships, the only way to move these objects on their local axis that is being displayed on them, we have no other choice but to use the 3D manipulator, right? You'll see that when we click on these X values, we can only move along the axis that is being displayed really on these local coordinate systems or the global coordinate system. So when we have to set on local, we can click on any of these objects and then move along the Z and the X. And of course, when we do that, both values are going to change. So this is how this concept works. Now, what we're going to do is take this to the next level. This is where we're going to now start getting into working with constraints. So to do this, I want you to shift middle mouse button and just pan this thing over here. Click on this object to Shift D and just place this object right about here. And now we're going to go under File, do Save As, and save this as a Bone Concepts 2.blend.